First time, yes, very clearly was in the very early 60s in Rome, nell'Auditorium del Foro Italico, with the Rai Rome orchestra, conducted by very young at the time Zubin Mehta, a rehearsal of the First Symphony. Because my father was working in the programming of classical music in Rai Rome, and he had a meeting that day. He couldn't stay with me, and he left me completely alone in the last row of the hall, of the parquet, of the platea. And he said, stay there for 1 hour and just don't move, don't talk, don't do nothing. And of course, when I heard the power of the music of this symphony, which later I would discover to be the first symphony of Mahler, left me this feeling of complete standstill, you know. I didn't know what to do, how to react, whether to cry, to shout, to be somehow overwhelmed by emotions. I was very, very young at the time, so around 8 or 9 years old, 8 or 9, and still since the time when I conduct the start of the finale of the First Symphony, I have this kind of abrasive feeling of stop breathing with this Beckenschlag and this crying, the desperate crying of the whole orchestra answering to that Beckenschlag, hidden with a percussion mazza di legno, is really something which remains in me. Is not only the great power of this music, but is also the great emotion of my youth. What is important, you have to have a romantic sound. Romantic sound in the sense of the depth of the sound, the culture of vibrato, the culture of portamenti, which is becoming more and more worldwide a rarity, you know, for symphony orchestra. This is an extremely delicate matter in Mahler music, where you can, with nothing, be tasteless, or with nothing to be too puristic, and to, let's say, abolish the existence of the portamento, which is also wrong. So, when you have an orchestra like the Gewandhaus Orchestra, which is one of the greatest German romantic orchestra, sound-wise, of course Mahler has a very strong impact. And whenever I do a Mahler symphony in Leipzig, there is a very, very deep emotional collaboration, but is always translated in sound expression. They're trying to really give the best in sound expression. And I think these at the end build a tradition of playing Mahler on the regular basis, very strongly. I think he decided, he was clearly aware of the fact that he followed his own way. He decided to go on with his own path, and fortunately, even after the famous dinner in Vienna, where Schönberg described to Mahler the principle of the Klangfarbe melody, which left Mahler apparently totally indifferent. That's what, accordingly to Alma's diary. But then you look to the final pages of Das Lied von der Erde, and you see that the Klangfarbe melody is all there, you know, where the disintegration of a melody becomes really, one by one, sound from itself. He has done the Klangfarbe melody. And so I think in a way he was constantly trying to update his language to the new wave of music making. But I think he kept very faithful to his own style until the end. And these, I think, if you look to Opus 1, Das klagende Lied, and then you make a jump to Das Lied von der Erde, you see a unity of language from this composer, which is pretty unique, I have to say. Well, look to the Adagio of the 10th Symphony, that's the answer. The 9 pitches vertical chord. There are 3 missing to become 12-tone music. So I think by himself he would have gone certainly beyond harmony, the burden of harmonic system, and he would have reached certainly the 12-tone system by himself. I don't like to romanticize too much about what's behind the music of Mahler, because too much has been written, too much has been said. Remember what happened in Amsterdam. Mengelberg asked him to write a presentation for the program about what was behind the meaning of his music. And he did it because of Mengelberg. The reaction of Mahler was that the day after the concert he heard so many nonsense commenting the introduction of Mahler, of what is behind his music, that he gave a veto to Mengelberg to print those introduction again, and said, from now on, my music should be played as it is, without one line to describe what's behind it. So in a way I agree with that. There is enough of Sturm und Drang, of emotions, of shocks, of poesia, brutality, all kind of extremes in his music to start somehow searching for a particular connection to whatever reasons behind it. We know his life, we know his bio, we know what was behind every symphony going on in his private life and a tragedy in his life, etc. Of course they are connected. But I still would like to consider Mahler nowadays more and more in a more distant, if not puristic way, of what his music just brings by listening to it. Punkt. That's a very difficult question to answer, but it's clearly almost provoking a no. He would have probably not been, if he would have not studied with Bruckner and learn from Bruckner how to master the shape of the enlarged sonata form of the symphony. È stato il viatico della costruzione nuova. The new building of his music would have not been possible without the school of Bruckner. I think Bruckner was the ideal bridge from the so-called Brahmsian tradition of Schumann and Brahms to the expansion of the symphony. And I think the fact that Mahler conducted often Bruckner symphonies, especially the 8th Symphony, which he adored, has been one of the examples of how to build the idea into the new form.